Hey, I found out my wife of 20 years found herself a younger boy toy, a 20-something coworker. It's funny they think we're not going to feel something different going on. I sensed it right away. People who don't tell me they were pretty disconnected from the relationship in the first place. Unlike many people I've read about, I did not ignore my gut. I tried to never ignore instincts in any situation, especially when dealing with people. Got the feeling something was off. Snooped her phone and there it was. Spied for a few days and sure enough they planned a hotel meetup on a Saturday. As I expected, she came up with a story why she had to go out to some boring work thing that Saturday. So I said sure, no problem. I made sure my iPad was charged. In that Saturday before she left, I tucked it in the back pocket of the passenger seat in her car. Sent the kids to my sister saying I had errands to run, then watch where the iPad was going. First to a restaurant, not one of her usual spots. Then, like a cheaply sheet was, to a motel. It was only 20 minutes away, so I headed out. It didn't take long to stalk the motel to figure out where they were. What I couldn't believe is that it was one of those disgusting cheap motels that were rent by the hour. A hookers and junkies motel. The kind of place she turns her nose up to. Anyway, I knocked on about a half-dozen doors and found theirs. A man asked what I needed from behind the door. I said I need to speak to my wife. He said she's not there. I said fine, I'll wait here at front of this door for a week if I have to. After a couple minutes she comes out. She looked like she was in total shock. I just asked her, you happy? Is this what you want? Fine, you're an adult. Have fun. I left. She was calling after me, but I ignored her. I was crushed and knew I was going to cry, but no way I was going to let her see that. She left there immediately and went to her sister's. I was still watching where my iPad was going. Later she called and told me we got married so young and she was confused what she wanted. I said you don't have to be confused. Do what you want. The marriage vows are broken, so I'm going to do what I want. I know this isn't recommended, but it worked for me. I ghosted her in our own house. I was always polite and cordial, but not loving in any way. I created a Tinder profile and started dating. This crushed my wife. She had several emotional breakdowns with uncontrollable sobbing fits. She begged me to stop and let's go to marriage counseling. I said I liked her idea better and that I was enjoying myself. I wasn't hiding in the shadows like her. I was doing my business in the light of day. I was doing great on Tinder. I keep myself in shape. I'm educated, make a great living. I'm honest and kind. I had no problem getting dates with very nice and attractive women. I told them exactly what was going on in my life because I didn't want to be dishonest. Of course, Boy Toy dumped her because his wife found out and she and he were trying to work it out. I told my wife to hit Tinder up and find herself a new guy. This would send her into crying fits. I never cried in front of her and I never begged her. Of course, what she did hurt me horribly, so I sedated those emotions by moving on. I ended up dating and being intimate with several beautiful women, younger than my wife. This was destroying her. That confusion of hers was long gone. She wanted us. I did too, so I stopped dating and we went to marriage counseling. We're long recovered now. This was several years ago. We don't dwell on the past. We talk about it openly. She asked me once if any of my girlfriends were better than her in bed, and I replied, oh yeah, one of them was amazing. I then explained how she was amazing, and now my wife works those things into our repertoire. I think the thing that snapped her out of it so quickly and had her begging me was how easily I can move on. She knows that I have no problem ghosting her and can be dating someone else a couple days later. Say what you want, but it worked for me. People have asked if I have mind movies or feel inferior to the other man. I say of course not. He's the kind of creep that has hookups and cheap motels with aging married women with self-esteem issues. Is that all he can score? No, I'd never feel inferior to a dude like that. If this happens to you, maybe give this a try. An unconventional approach maybe, but it worked for us. And the first comment says, it's an unconventional approach, and I suspected cheated on spouse's mileage will vary. But there is one truth that this story highlights, that grumbling and begging for reconciliation doesn't work. I did grumble, beg, etc., and in retrospect it is clear that being the supplicant was counterproductive. I didn't realize it at the time. But those times when I was obviously ready to move on, those were the times when she wanted me back. When she first told me she didn't love me, I responded by creating a spreadsheet of what it would look monetarily if we divorced. That, at least momentarily, stopped her in her tracks. Later, after more grumbling, etc., I was done, and during a therapy session, I think she caught on to that, and all of the sudden, for a very short time period, I had a spouse willing to work on it. Of course, that didn't last, because I took her at her word and went whole hog into reconciliation mode. She moved out a couple months later, agreeing that the ground rules were that we wouldn't see other people. A ground rule she told me was not in play a couple of days later. I didn't yet realize that she had been unfaithful for months. So off she goes, and based on the revised ground rules, I start dating. One night she drives by the house and sees another car in my driveway. Guess who calls yelling and screaming that I have someone over? You guessed it. And shortly thereafter she wants to reconcile. That lasts for a few months until she finds what she thinks is a different greener patch of grass. We divorced, and years later, I realized what a blessing not being married to her anymore is. My experience taught me these lessons. Groveling and begging don't work. Making it clear you're moving on very well could. You cannot save a marriage unless there is a committed partnership between you and the WS to work toward reconciliation. I didn't delve into it here, but if the other person won't cut ties with the AP, you do not have a reconciliation partner. Sometimes the divorce you didn't want ends up being a blessing. And the second comment says, this is exactly how I believe this should be handled. I did something almost similar. I caught him having an internet and phone relationship, so I confronted him, shot a few tears. He begged me not to leave. So instead I gave him a taste of his own medicine. I openly made internet dating accounts, even asked him how to get on the ones he had. I showed him all the potential dates I had lined up. I even called a couple ex-boyfriends that still wanted me back on speakerphone to tell him how they were looking forward to him screwing up so they can come back into my life. I never actually followed through on any dating, but he knew I wasn't just going to sit and cry about what he did. I just told him that I'm too old for this VS, and there are plenty of men out there that would easily take his place. I think I got through to him. We have been good for a while now. He already knows, if this relationship fails, it will be BC of him. Next.